Chapter 38. The Party Membership. The Final Political Hurdle, 1990. The delicate thread that supported my dream of going abroad now dangled precariously. Would it all work out? Would the U.S. consulate recognize the proof of $10,000 received by the school as my legitimate financial guarantee? I had no way of knowing. It was already mid-December, and my flight to the United States was just 3 weeks away. But an even larger challenge loomed before I could contemplate my visa interview. I needed to apply for my passport. In China, this was not merely a bureaucratic formality. It was a political battlefield. Everything in China was political. If you failed the political test, all else became irrelevant. Before I could even set foot in the Public Security Bureau to apply for a passport, I had to go through an elaborate chain of approvals within the party. The process was rigid, unbreakable, and risky. And here's what I had to complete as required. 1. Resign from my role at Hengshan Group, formally giving up my government position. 2. Submit an official report to the company's party committee requesting permission for private overseas travel while also seeking to keep my Communist Party membership. I had to. 3. Wait for Hengshan Group's internal party approval, which would then be forwarded to the party leadership group at the Shanghai Municipal Government General Office, the highest party authority responsible for overseeing municipal government operations. 4. If the General Office Party Group approves my request, my case would be escalated to the Municipal Party Committee's Organization Department, which oversees all party members within city-level government agencies. I could only apply for a passport after obtaining approval from all 3 levels of party organizations. A personal resignation and exit application like mine within the party and a government enterprise at that time was unprecedented. There was no prior example for such a request. Even if approved, the process could typically take weeks or even months. But I was working against the clock. I only had 7 days. If I couldn't clear this bureaucratic and political gauntlet within a week, my ticket, my enrollment, my visa, my dream everything would be meaningless. To make matters worse, the nation remained under the shadow of post-Tiananmen China. The global community was imposing sanctions on the communist regime politically, economically, and diplomatically. The party was highly sensitive to anything that hinted at Western influence, and internal purges were still occurring. During this period, no one in government dared to submit a private overseas travel application. Even to ask for one was tantamount to political suicide. If you did, you would be either outright denied or blacklisted for life, regardless of whether you were allowed to remain. It felt akin to willingly entering a political execution chamber. I knew full well that if I didn't handle this correctly, it wouldn't just be the end of my dream, it could mean something far worse than owing $10,000 for the rest of my life. I felt completely trapped. I had no idea where even to begin. There was only one person I could turn to. Director Hu. I went to his office and laid it all out. My resignation, my party membership reservation application, my passport request, and my ticking clock. Director Hu sat in his office, listening in his usual calm, almost amused manner. Then he looked at me, unblinking. He swallowed, smiled, and said,
"Little Yang, don't worry. Leave it to me."
Even after all these years of working under him and knowing just how powerful he was, I still couldn't believe what I had just heard. This was no small favor. Even Mr. Hu, for all his influence, wasn't immune to the dangers of the party. If he pushed too hard, he would be putting himself at risk. And he was doing this for me, a mere subordinate. In the party, leaders simply didn't do this. They would never jeopardize their own position for someone else's personal dreams. Yet here he was taking the impossible risk for me. I was stunned. This was the one thing I had been most desperate to hear, but I had never truly expected him to say it. Director Hu had always been untouchable. But this? This was something else entirely. This was not how communist officials were supposed to behave. This was something I had never seen before. I reminded him I had 1 week. In just 7 days, we had to challenge the party's bureaucracy and achieve a triple-jump approval process that typically took months, if it was ever approved. Hu just smiled, the same knowing, fearless, unshakable smile. At that moment, I truly believed him. This was a one-man battle against the party bureaucracy. He was defying the system. Director Hu wasted no time. As the party secretary of Hengshan Group, he immediately summoned the company's deputy party secretary to his office and ordered him to convene an urgent party committee meeting, the sole purpose of which was to approve my application. Right in front of me, Hu didn't even bother with formalities. Looking directly at the nervous, obedient deputy, he stated,
"I've approved it already. Just follow through. Make it official. Prepare the paperwork, and have someone submit it to the Municipal Government General Office Party Leadership Group. I'll handle the phone call."
This was not a mere suggestion. It was an unequivocal command. Hu's authority was unquestioned. No one in the company would dare oppose his decision. The real challenge, however, awaited outside Hengshan Group with the municipal government's general office. The following day, I visited the Bund. I entered the general office of the Shanghai municipal government, standing before Wan Shuiyuan, the Secretary General, a significant bureaucrat who also chaired the Hengshan Group's board of directors. I wasn't by myself. I was joined by the deputy party secretary and the HR manager from Hengshan Group, and together we had 3 essential documents in hand: my official application for private travel abroad, Hengshan Group's party committee approval, a formal request for the general office's party leadership group to grant final approval. Wan took the papers, glanced over them, and instantly hesitated. I saw it in his face, a flicker of discomfort, the instinctive reaction of a bureaucrat caught in a political tightrope act. Then, as expected, he defaulted to official speak.
"Oh yes, I got a call from old Hu about this, but we need to hold a meeting first. This will take some time. We'll also need to consult with the Municipal Party Committee's organization department. Maybe we can schedule a discussion next week."
His true message was unmistakable. Delay, stall, buy time. It was a typical bureaucratic strategy. Avoid risks, remain neutral, and refrain from making decisions unless necessary. Wan was an experienced politician, recognized for his sharpness, efficiency, and attention to detail. However, he preferred to keep his distance regarding sensitive, gray area issues like this one, particularly after the Tiananmen massacre, with the party implementing stricter controls on officials traveling abroad. The last thing he desired was to get embroiled in an internal political upheaval. He worried about upsetting the wrong individuals. Simultaneously, he also feared displeasing Hu, a man of considerable influence. I could see the tension in his eyes. He was calculating, trying to find a way to balance both sides. I knew I couldn't afford to let him stall. If this request were buried in bureaucratic limbo, it would only get more complicated. More people would weigh in, more obstacles would arise, and eventually it would become politically impossible to approve. So, I did something I rarely did. I spoke up. I looked directly at Wan and, in a calm but deliberate voice, laid it all out. "Secretary General Wan, I understand your concerns, but my timeline is extremely tight. If this gets delayed, I will lose my opportunity to study abroad. Not only would it ruin my plans, but it could also put Hu in an awkward position. And ultimately, Well, we both know this could reflect poorly on General Secretary Jiang Zemin. His eyes snapped up to mine. That was the key. That was the Communist Party's ultimate unspoken code to rule the hierarchy of influence. At the top of this chain sat Jiang Zemin, the General Secretary of the Communist Party and President of China. Director Hu was one of Jiang's closest allies in Shanghai. If Yuan had rejected my application, he would not have just rejected me, he would have indirectly challenged Hu and, by extension, Jiang. I watched as Yuan processed my words, his mind quickly recalculating the risks. Finally, after a long pause, he sighed, put down the papers, and said,
All right, I'll take care of it. Come back the day after tomorrow.
It was Thursday. That meant I'd have my approval by Saturday, which, at the time, was still a working day in China. As promised, I sent a staff member to pick up the official document from the general office on Saturday morning. With this approval, the next step was to deliver it to the Municipal Party Committee's organization department, which oversaw all party members in Shanghai's government agencies. My application reached the Municipal Organization Department's City-Level Agencies Committee on Monday, December 17th, the highest party authority overseeing Shanghai's government personnel. On Tuesday, December 18th, I received their final approval. From start to finish, in less than 1 week, I had managed to bulldoze through Shanghai's three-tiered party bureaucracy, and I had done it at breakneck speed, faster than I ever thought possible. For outsiders, China's government bureaucracy appeared formidable, impenetrable, and rigidly hierarchical. To some extent, this was true. The two-layered structure of party and government was like an elaborate priesthood. The party controlled ideology and thought, much like Iran's theocratic ruling system. The government managed material, social, and civil affairs. In theory, the party dictated absolute control over the government. But in practice and reality, power was shifting. As China opened up to the world, its economic influence grew, and government agencies became more powerful. The party, once all-powerful, started losing ground, becoming increasingly detached from practical governance. This created a silent power struggle between the party and the government. Government officials grew wealthier, bolder, and more pragmatic as a result of economic development and new opportunities. Party leaders could only cling to outdated ideological authority, resisting change out of habit and political paranoia. For outsiders, the system looked strictly hierarchical and suffocatingly bureaucratic. But inside, it was an unpredictable jungle where personal influence, bureaucratic laziness, and sheer randomness often determined outcomes more than actual rules. The communist system could be mind-numbingly slow one moment and terrifyingly swift the next. It could be strict beyond reason, yet shockingly lawless when convenient. It could crush dissent mercilessly while allowing corruption to flourish unchecked. And now I had just experienced its contradictions firsthand. By all logic, my request should have been rejected or buried in endless delays. Instead, it had rocketed through Shanghai's highest party offices in several days. Why? Because I had played by their rules. Because Director Hu had enforced his authority. Because I had invoked the name that held ultimate power. And now I was one step closer to America. Somehow, I had crossed an impenetrable threshold, a bureaucratic fortress designed to keep people trapped, a political machine that demanded absolute loyalty. And yet, I had slipped through unscathed. It was as if an invisible force had taken hold of my life, shifting the pieces into place, nudging me toward a future I could not yet see. Jiang Zemin and I were two sides of the same coin, our destiny dictated by the exact historical moment, yet our choices led us down opposite roads. I was willing to risk bankruptcy and imprisonment to sever all ties with the Communist Party to break free from the evil. Driven by fear of losing his current prestigious status, Jiang pursued greater power within this evil hierarchy. At that moment, I understood something profound. A person's inner world shapes their destiny, not just their own. It influences their family, nation, and people. No matter which way I looked at it, Director Hu's actions defied logic. He had gone above and beyond, not just helping me secure my departure, but doing it at record speed, cutting through bureaucratic barriers that should have taken weeks and months, if not years. I should have been overflowing with gratitude. And yet I never verbally thanked him, not because I wasn't grateful, but because deep down it felt strangely insincere. I knew this wasn't about Hu anymore. An unseen force, far beyond human control, guided my steps, unlocking doors that should have remained firmly sealed. I could feel it. With the last bureaucratic approvals, I prepared an official introduction letter from Hengshan Group and contacted an old acquaintance, a vice director at the Shanghai Public Security Bureau. "How long will it take?" I asked.
1 week at most,
he replied. With the passport hurdle seemingly resolved, I finally focused on my U.S. visa application.